Hi, welcome back to another video.
Last year, I did a video about how to use a Halloween projector in your Halloween decorations or in your Halloween haunt. I'll put a link to that up there and also down there. So if you haven't seen it, you can take a look. Um, in that video, I showed a lot of cool ways that you can project it into your windows or onto tombstones, things like that, or specialized screens. And a lot of you all have loved that. And I've got a lot of good comments on that. Now, I featured a projector there. It's this little one called the HP4 by AAXA. And the people from AAXA reached out to me and asked if I wanted to try out their upgraded one, the HP4, which is right here. And I thought it was a great opportunity to address one of the things that a lot of people have commented about, and they've asked, where do you put the projector? How do you hide it in your haunt? So I'm going to show you one way to do that today, and we'll get going on that. There's a lot of cool ways that you can do this, but I got the idea for this particular build when I came across this. This is a styrofoam box. It's actually a shipping container. If we open it up here, you can see. It's the kind of thing that they would ship cold things like meat or ice cream or something if you were to get that shipped. Anyway, you don't have to use this for the build that I'm going to do, but I'm going to start with this just because it's partly there and it also seems too cool to just throw away. So we're going to start with this, but if you don't have one of these, you can also just build the box out of styrofoam or out of pink foam. Okay, so for this box, this is going to be the container that holds the projector or that hides the projector. We're going to make like a tombstone out of it. The first thing I want to do is I need to take out one of these long walls. To do that, I am going to use a hot wire tool. When you use these, they work great with foam, but it's got bad fumes. So make sure you have proper ventilation and a respirator. Okay, let's do a quick test fit of the projector. Okay, it can just sit right inside there. It's important there's enough room for ventilation. Projectors create a lot of heat, and styrofoam melts with heat. So this should have plenty of room in here for the air to flow all around it, above it, below it, and on either side. I need to glue some scrap pieces together to make a piece that's big enough. I want it to be a little bit bigger than the box so that it overlaps all over the side. So I'm going to glue them together with this Liquid Nails foam board adhesive. And we'll just put it together, squish it together, and then let that dry. Once it's dry, then we can cut the piece to shape. And while I'm at it, I'm going to use some other scrap to assemble together the top piece. Now I'd like to put a top, like, obelisk kind of thing sitting on top of the base. But the interesting part about this is it's going to be a broken tombstone. So I'm going to put together the shape using the pink foam, and the sides will all assemble together using hot glue. Okay, so we have the obelisk base, the remaining part, glued together, our little box. You'll notice I haven't put a top on it yet. That's because I want this to be like a broken, like this whole top part just cracked off and is gone. We've lost that part. There are probably easier ways to do what I have done here, but you can see that I've chopped off the top of this, and this is just like where it broke off. Well, guess what? Now I need a top here. And so I'm just going to cram a bunch of scrap pieces in there the best I can, and then I will actually spend some time after that. We'll carve it a little bit so that it feels more like it's all one piece. Okay, now we're going to glue this onto the top of the tabletop that we made earlier. All right, we have all of this unfinished surface up here. We've got cracks and gaps all along, and we want to clean that all up. So what we're going to do is use this. Backwards, upside down, I mean, joint compound. Okay, so I'm putting this on, and when it dries, it'll be really easy to sand. I'm just trying to define the planes of the cracked surface. And then, of course, I want to fill in every little gap. And once it's dry, then I'm just going to sand it with a regular sander. And I'll sand all of the surfaces flat, and then I knock down every sharp corner. We're going to switch gears back to the base. I want this to be a little more Halloween. I have an idea. All you have to do is, grab your bucket of skulls and look through. Okay, I think I'm going to use these. Then I'm just going to use one of these. So I think what I'm going to do is take this, and I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw and cut the back of the head off. Now with my foam glue, I glue the lid on and then the top section to the pedestal. Because there are holes in the eyes and the nose, I went ahead and spray painted the inside of this with black spray paint so that it'll be harder to tell there's purple there. Once these are glued on, you're still going to be able to see through the eyes and see the surface that's in there. So I need to do a coat of paint first. Once that paint is dry, then I just use some hot glue to glue the skulls down. So this top part is pretty boring, so I just put a crack in. Unfortunately, I forgot to record that, but I am going to put another crack over here. We do this by cutting a V-shaped groove into the foam. Now I cover the entire thing with dry lock paint. This gives it both a stone texture and also waterproofs it. And I actually need 2 coats, so I let the first one dry and then cover it with a second coat. Okay, I've got 2 coats of dry lock on here. For the next step, I'm going to use some burnt umber that's very watered down. If I just paint directly on this dry stuff, it does find drips and it falls down, but if you want it to kind of react better, you can spray it first with some water. And then when you paint, it falls down a lot easier. And we want to think about where dirt and stuff would accumulate. So rain and stuff might brush off stuff from the top, but anything underneath, any cracks, dirt's going to have a harder time getting washed off, so it's going to kind of accumulate there. We let it dry just a little bit. It's still moist, both from the spray and the paint. We're going to add another color. So this is a little bit of green. It's too bright as it is, so I'm going to add some of the same brown to it. And like before, we're going to water it down and just do some washes like we did with the brown. And if you watched my other videos, you know that it's important to layer different colors. It adds a lot of realism. Things in the world are not just a single color. And you can see as it dries that the colors are a lot more muted than they were originally. I'm going to do another wash on here, a black wash, but before I do that, this area right here is really boring, so I want to add something to it. So stick with me as we take a quick detour. I thought putting a plaque on it would be pretty nice, and it'll be a bronze plaque, so I designed and 3D printed this plaque. Now, some of it didn't print as well as it should have. You can see this corner is kind of mushed, and rather than fix everything and reprint it, I'm just going to modify this. What if this corner were broken off? So a quick trip to the bandsaw, and we've got a nice broken corner here, and we'll just pretend like it broke off. And I've got a whole nother video on how to make 3D prints look like real metal. So I'll put a link up at the top and also underneath, so go check that out for the specifics. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of zip through all of the steps here, except for the things that I do that are new that are not covered in that video. Okay, ignore the paint that's already on this. I started going down one direction and then I forgot that I wanted to try something new. Now, a YouTube channel that I really like is called Van Oaks Props, and
He's got a lot of great videos that show things like how to add texture to metal and other surfaces. And so I wanted to try a technique that I saw on his channel. So I'm going to spray the surface with spray adhesive. And this makes a really cool kind of bumpy texture that looks a lot like sand casted metal. And then to kind of seal the stickiness of that glue, we're just going to put some baby powder on it and just rub that around. Now, I know this looks weird, but this white does not come from that baby powder. I actually tried a number of different things that didn't work out, and rather than show you all of that trial and error here, I don't have enough time for that. I'm going to skip through. So this is where I got to a point where I hated what it looked like, so I'm going to repaint over this and start from this point.
I was worried that we were going to lose all of the little bumpy texture, but we didn't. It's still there.
So just like in my other video, I'm going to use some rub and buff and a soft cloth that I'm going to just add some highlights of kind of gold, metallic gold and bronze onto this to make it feel like metal. After waiting a few minutes for the rub and buff to dry, I've got some very watered down white paint that I'm just going to spray on this surface. And when it's dry, it will look like hard water stains or calcification from the water.
The calcium layer, the hard water stains are on it. They're dry. It looks awesome. This is like bronze. Bronze is made out of copper, and when copper oxidizes, it turns green. You get this stuff called verdigris on it. We're not going to make this super bright green, but we are going to add a little bit of light turquoise. We're going to water it down just like we've done with everything else. And I'm just going to highlight some areas, probably areas where a lot of water has touched.
As I mentioned, I learned this from watching Van Oak's props, and in the spirit of full transparency, as I was looking through his videos, I found that he had done a video very similar to the one that we're doing today, making a tombstone to hide a projector. So just to be fair, I'm going to put a link down to his video down in the description below so you can take a look at that too. Now it's time to glue the plaque onto the tombstone. I'm going to use two different kinds of glue here. I'm going to use the Project foam glue, but also hot glue. I store this in the attic, and in the summertime that gets hot enough that if I just use hot glue, it will melt the glue and fall off. So I'm using the hot glue now to hold it in place short term, long enough for the Project glue, the foam glue, to solidify. Okay, it's looking so cool already. But we need to do one last step, and that is we're going to do a black wash on it. Now what I have is some watered down, there's black and brown mixed together in here, and it's very watered down. I have the same mixture of black and brown in here, but it's a little bit stronger. A little bit here and there. So I mixed up one other bit of paint. This is the same black and brown mixed together, but with only a little bit of water added to it. This will let me actually paint a little bit of detail in there. And again, I'm kind of focusing on areas where there would be the darkest shadow, adding detail in all of the cracks and around the plaque, like grime has accumulated there. And then the skulls themselves need a little more definition in the eyes, the nose, the recesses around the teeth, things like that. And this is all going to dry much lighter than it is now. Okay, with all the washes dry, there's one last thing to do, and that is we want to bring out a little bit of the texture in the stone, and we're going to do that by dry brushing. So what I've got here is some light gray paint that I've put on my brush, then brushed it all off. And now I can brush across the surface of the stone, and only the highest spots will pick up any of the paint, and we'll start to see some of the grain from the sandiness in the paint. And we're going to do this across the entire stone. especially bringing out the details of the corners and edges.
Now that the tombstone is done, before we get our final looks at the tombstone, let's talk about the projector itself just for a quick moment. Again, this is the AAXA HP4. This one is an upgrade from the HP3 that we used last year.
It's got a lot of great new features. For one thing, the native resolution is now 1080p instead of 720p, so that's nice. It has Bluetooth capability, so you can attach a Bluetooth speaker, but you'll see here in just a moment that the speakers that come on this are actually quite loud and work great for a Halloween haunt. We are using it for Halloween, but it can be used as a regular projector. It's got an HDMI input. It's got a headphone so that you can hook external speakers or headphones to it, and it will read directly from USB or from micro USB if you want to put, MP4 or movie files or something like that. So it also has screen mirroring capabilities, so you can mirror your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android or whatever. It's a great projector overall, and I really like it. I like its small size, even though it is a little bit bigger than the old one. But you got to be able to fit all that new stuff in there anyway. I'm going to put a link down in the description below so you can check it out for yourself if you'd like. But right now, let's take a look at it in action. It's still a little early for me to be putting up all of my decorations, so I'm just projecting onto my window and onto my blinds without any special setup. But you can see here that the HP4 fits perfectly inside here. It's got plenty of room for air. Now let's take a look at the final result. As always, I had a lot of fun doing this project, and this tombstone is going to fit right in with the rest of the graveyard when I put all of the decorations up this year. Thank you all so much for your comments and asking me to do this, and thanks to AAXA for letting me try out their new projector. If you enjoyed this video, tell YouTube that other people might also like it by giving it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, subscribe if you haven't already.
You C6 sales data. I'll have your tail hauled for your...
Until next time, I'll catch you later.